When you reach old age and find yourself facing solitude, what should you do? This isn't just a story about growing older. It's a guide to facing life's challenges with resilience and purpose. Whether you've lost loved ones, feel distant as your children move forward, or are seeking ways to rediscover happiness, this video is here to help. Today, we'll explore the inspiring journey of Henry Carter, a 65-year-old widower who turned his loneliness into a life of independence and fulfillment. Whether you're retired, living on your own, or preparing for this phase of life, this video is packed with practical advice to guide you. Stay tuned until the end for powerful insights that can help you not just survive, but truly thrive in your golden years. Let's get started. As we age, life can sometimes take unexpected turns, leaving us with a sense of emptiness that feels impossible to fill. For Henry Carter, this journey began when he transitioned into early retirement. Financially, he was prepared. He had saved diligently for years, anticipating a future where he could enjoy the fruits of his labor. But one thing Henry didn't account for was the emotional silence that followed. His wife, Claire, had always been the heart of their home. Her laughter, warmth, and presence had made every day brighter. But when she passed away after a long illness, the house grew unbearably quiet. His two children, Emma and Luke, had families of their own and were busy building their lives. Henry was proud of their success, but couldn't help longing for the days when his home was filled with the sounds of family. Henry once said, "It's not that my children don't care, they do. But life gets busy, and as parents, we have to accept that their world can't revolve around us forever." This is a reality many older adults face. Despite love and care from family, the moments of solitude can weigh heavily on the heart. One afternoon, Henry sat in his living room surrounded by the stillness of his home. The silence was almost deafening. Then the phone rang. It was his son Luke calling to say he couldn't visit as planned because of a work emergency. Henry tried to sound understanding, replying with, "Don't worry about me, son. Focus on what you need to do." But as he hung up, a hollow ache settled in his chest. It's a tough truth to face. When your children grow up, their responsibilities often leave little room for regular visits. And while it's easy to feel bitter or abandoned, Henry realized that this was an opportunity to rethink how he approached his own life. The turning point came during a conversation with his neighbor, Philip, who was grappling with similar feelings. Philip asked him a question that resonated deeply. What if one day you're all alone? What will you do? That question haunted Henry for days. Instead of letting it consume him, Henry decided to act. He realized he couldn't rely on others to fill the void in his life. He needed to take control. The first step was simple. He started walking to the park every morning. At first, it was just about getting out of the house, but over time it became a moment of reflection and peace. He also joined activities at the local community center, where he slowly built new friendships. This wasn't easy. Henry often felt the pull of loneliness urging him to retreat into his shell. But he knew that giving in would only deepen his isolation. By making small but deliberate changes, he began to create a life that felt meaningful again. For anyone in a similar position, Henry's story is a reminder. Loneliness is not a permanent state. It's a challenge we can face with courage, action, and an open heart. After Henry Carter realized the weight of loneliness was becoming unbearable, he knew something had to change. Sitting in silence and dwelling on what he had lost would only deepen the void. The question his neighbor Philip asked, "What will you do if you're all alone?" kept ringing in his mind. Henry wasn't ready to let life slip through his fingers. He wanted to reclaim his days, but the path forward felt daunting. It started small. Henry decided to break his routine of staying home all day. Every morning, he took a short walk to the local park. At first, the act of stepping outside seemed trivial, but with each day, he found solace in the fresh air, the sound of birds, and the gentle rhythm of his footsteps. Walking became more than just an activity. It was a symbol of taking control of his life, one step at a time. Henry also pushed himself to connect with others, even when it felt awkward. He joined a chess club at the community center, a place where he could meet people who shared his interests. The first few meetings were uncomfortable. He felt out of place and hesitant to open up. But gradually, conversations flowed, and he began forming bonds with others who, like him, were looking for connection and meaning in their later years. One of the most powerful lessons Henry learned during this time was that change doesn't have to be dramatic to be impactful. Small, consistent actions can create ripples that transform your outlook on life. By simply showing up, whether it was for a walk, a game of chess, or a casual conversation, Henry was proving to himself that he still had the power to shape his days. But even as he made these strides, Henry couldn't ignore the emptiness left by his late wife, Claire. There were moments when he wondered if finding companionship again would dishonor her memory. Yet, deep down, he knew that opening his heart to others didn't mean forgetting Claire. It meant honoring the love they had shared by living fully in the present. Henry's journey wasn't about replacing what was lost, it was about embracing what remained. He discovered that life after loss isn't about erasing pain, but learning to carry it with strength. For anyone struggling with loneliness, Henry's experience is a testament to the importance of action. You don't need to have all the answers right away. Start small. Take a walk, join a group, or strike up a conversation. These seemingly simple steps can lead to profound change. Loneliness may feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to define your life. As Henry often says, the first step forward is always the hardest, but it's also the most important. And once you take that step, the path ahead becomes a little clearer, a little brighter. As Henry Carter worked to rebuild his life after loss, he realized something profound. No matter how independent you strive to be, humans are social beings. We thrive on connection, and meaningful relationships can breathe life into even the quietest of days. It was during one of his walks at the park that Henry met Evelyn, a lively woman around his age who had also faced her share of loneliness. Evelyn wasn't just another face in the crowd. She exuded a warmth and optimism that intrigued Henry. Their first conversation started with something simple, a shared comment about the weather, but as they talked, Henry felt a spark he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of being seen and understood. Evelyn, like Henry, had lost her partner and lived alone. Her children lived far away, and while they called occasionally, their lives were full and busy. Despite this, Evelyn had cultivated a life filled with small joys. She spent her mornings exploring new places and her evenings trying her hand at hobbies like painting and cooking. Her zest for life was contagious, and it inspired Henry to approach his own days with more curiosity and hope. Their connection deepened quickly. They began meeting regularly, often walking together or enjoying a quiet cup of tea on a park bench. Evelyn didn't just fill Henry's days with companionship. She brought him a fresh perspective on aging. She reminded him that life's later years weren't just about enduring. They were about exploring, growing, and finding new reasons to smile. But opening his heart again wasn't without its challenges. At times, Henry felt pangs of guilt. How could he allow himself to enjoy this companionship when memories of Claire were still so vivid? Evelyn, with her gentle understanding, reassured him. She said, "We can honor the ones we've loved by continuing to live fully. They wouldn't want us to stop finding joy together." They created a rhythm to their days. They cooked meals, shared stories, and even tried new activities like gardening. These shared experiences reminded Henry of something he had forgotten. Life is richer when it's shared with someone who cares. One evening, when Henry fell ill with a fever, Evelyn was the one by his side. Her care and concern were unwavering. She brought him medicine, stayed through the night, and even called his son, Luke, to inform him of the situation. That night, Henry realized just how much her presence had transformed his life. Evelyn wasn't just a companion. She had become an anchor in his world, grounding him with her kindness and support. For older adults wondering whether to seek companionship, Henry's story is a reminder. It's never too late to open your heart. Relationships don't erase the past, they enrich the present. As Henry says, love in later life isn't about replacing what's gone. It's about finding someone who makes the journey ahead a little less lonely. For Henry Carter, life had begun to feel fuller with Evelyn by his side. Their companionship brought warmth and meaning to his days. But as with every chapter in life, change is inevitable, and Henry soon found himself facing yet another challenge, learning to let go. One day, Evelyn received a phone call from her son, who shared the exciting news of his upcoming wedding. He wanted her to move in with him and his new family, offering her the chance to be closer to her grandchildren. When Evelyn shared the news with Henry, he felt a mix of emotions. He wanted to be happy for her, but he couldn't ignore the ache in his chest. Evelyn, too, was torn. She said, "I've gotten used to being here with you, Henry. This has become my home." Her voice carried the weight of an unspoken question. Could she leave behind the bond they had built? Henry knew the answer, though it wasn't easy to accept. With a deep breath, he said, "Evelyn, as much as I want you to stay, I know this is the right thing for you. Family is important, and you deserve to be with them. I'll be okay." In truth, those words were some of the hardest Henry had ever spoken. Letting go of someone who had brought so much light into his life felt like losing a piece of himself. But he also understood that love isn't about holding on. It's about supporting others in their journey, even when it means facing your own loneliness. The day Evelyn left was bittersweet. Henry drove her to the bus stop, his heart heavy with emotions he couldn't fully express. As the bus pulled away, he stood there, watching it disappear down the road, feeling the silence settle over him once again. Returning home, Henry faced the quiet that had once been so oppressive. But this time, something was different. Evelyn's presence had taught him that loneliness doesn't have to define life. It can be a space for growth and reflection. Henry decided to focus on the lessons Evelyn had imparted. He resumed his daily walks, joined new activities, and reached out to friends at the community center. The emptiness didn't vanish overnight, but slowly he found a sense of peace in embracing the impermanence of life. Letting go is never easy, especially in later years when connections feel more precious than ever. But Henry's experience shows that every goodbye can also be a beginning. By cherishing the memories and allowing yourself to move forward, you can find new sources of strength and happiness. As Henry often reflects, the people we love leave imprints on our hearts. Even when they're no longer with us, their impact remains, guiding us toward a life that's meaningful and full. After Evelyn moved away, Henry Carter found himself once again facing the stillness of his home. But this time, the emptiness felt heavier, as if the warmth she had brought into his life had left an even greater void. Henry knew he couldn't return to the way things were before. He needed to make a change, not just to escape the loneliness, but to find a new path forward. One afternoon, while visiting the community center, Henry overheard a conversation that planted a seed in his mind. A group of residents was discussing life in a nursing home, not as a place of decline, but as a community where they could connect with others and enjoy their later years. Initially, the idea didn't sit well with Henry. A nursing home had always seemed like a last resort, a place that symbolized giving up. But the more he thought about it, the more he wondered if it could offer the companionship and structure he craved. That evening, Henry called his son Luke to share his thoughts. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Luke spoke. "Dad, are you sure about this? A nursing home can feel so cold. Are you ready for that kind of change?" Henry took a deep breath and replied, "Luke, it's not about what I'm leaving behind. It's about what I could gain. You and Emma have your own lives to live, and I don't want to be a burden. At least in a community, I'll have people around, and I won't feel so alone. After discussing it with his children, Henry made the decision to move into a nursing home located in a quiet suburb. The transition wasn't easy. Saying goodbye to the home he had shared with Claire and raised his children in felt like closing a chapter of his life. But Henry knew that holding on to the past would only keep him from embracing the future. On his first day at the nursing home, Henry felt out of place. The unfamiliar faces, the structured routine, it all felt overwhelming. But then he met Mr. Robinson, a longtime resident who welcomed him with a warm smile and a kind offer to show him around. Over time, Henry began to adjust. He joined group activities, enjoyed meals with fellow residents, and even started teaching chess to others. Slowly but surely, he built a new sense of belonging. 6 months later, Henry reflected on his decision. I was hesitant at first, but moving here was the right choice. Life isn't perfect, but it's peaceful. I found a rhythm, a purpose, and connections I never thought I'd have again. For anyone considering a major change, Henry's story reminds us that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most meaningful transformations. Life doesn't end with change. It evolves, and with the right mindset, every new chapter can bring its own blessings. Life at the nursing home brought Henry Carter new friendships and a sense of routine, but it also came with unexpected challenges that tested his resilience. One of these challenges was the sudden and tragic loss of a dear friend, Mrs. Robinson. Mrs. Robinson had become an integral part of Henry's new life. She was kind and thoughtful and always seemed to know how to lift his spirits. They spent countless afternoons playing chess, sharing stories, and enjoying the quiet companionship of someone who truly understood what it meant to start over in later years. One afternoon, Henry received a phone call that sent shockwaves through his heart. Mrs. Robinson had been in a car accident, and her condition was critical. The news was a painful reminder of life's fragility. Henry's mind raced as he arranged for transportation to the hospital. All he could think about was her warm smile and the laughter they had shared just days earlier. When Henry arrived at the hospital, the gravity of the situation was clear. Mrs. Robinson was unresponsive, and the doctors weren't optimistic. Henry sat by her side, holding her hand and silently praying for a miracle. In her final moments, she managed to open her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said, "Live well, Henry." Those words stayed with him, echoing in his mind as he tried to process the loss. The days that followed were filled with a deep, aching emptiness. Even the company of other residents and the structure of his routine couldn't fill the void left by Mrs. Robinson's absence. Grief, as Henry discovered, isn't something you can rush through or ignore. It demands to be felt. It challenges you to confront the depth of your emotions and the reality of impermanence. But in this challenging process, Henry found a profound lesson. Grief is a reflection of love. It's a testament to the bonds we form and the impact others have on our lives. Instead of retreating into isolation, Henry chose to honor Mrs. Robinson's memory by embracing the wisdom she had shared with him. He reminded himself of her words, "Live well," and resolved to carry her kindness and optimism forward. Henry began seeking ways to find meaning in his grief. He volunteered to lead a weekly chess group, helping others discover the joy of the game that had brought him and Mrs. Robinson so much connection. He also took up journaling, using it as a way to reflect on his memories and channel his emotions. For older adults coping with loss, Henry's story offers a powerful message. Grief may never fully go away, but it can transform into something meaningful. By honoring the memories of those we've lost, we keep their legacy alive and find new ways to move forward. As Henry often says, loss teaches us to cherish what we have while we still have it. And through the pain, we discover the strength to keep living fully. Henry Carter's journey through loneliness, companionship, and loss taught him some of the most profound lessons about life. As he reflected on his experiences, he began to see that aging isn't just about enduring. It's about growing and finding meaning in every stage of life. One of the most significant lessons Henry learned was the importance of relationships. He realized that the bonds we form, whether with family, friends, or even fleeting acquaintances, shape the quality of our lives. These connections are the threads that weave the tapestry of our existence, bringing color and warmth to an otherwise quiet world. But Henry also discovered that relationships require effort and care. In his later years, he prioritized nurturing the connections that truly mattered. He made time to call his children, even if their schedules were hectic. He invited fellow residents at the nursing home to join him for walks or games of chess, creating moments of shared joy. For Henry, the key was balance. He knew that while relationships were vital, so was his sense of independence. He often reflected, "It's important to cherish the people in your life, but it's equally important to be comfortable with yourself. Solitude isn't loneliness if you learn to enjoy your own company." Another lesson Henry embraced was the power of adaptability. Life, he realized, doesn't follow a predictable script. From losing his wife Claire to meeting Evelyn and eventually saying goodbye to Mrs. Robinson, Henry's path was filled with unexpected twists and turns. Instead of resisting these changes, he chose to adapt. He allowed himself to grieve, but also gave himself permission to grow. Henry's adaptability extended to his daily habits. He understood that staying active, both physically and mentally, was essential for his well-being. He committed to regular walks, joined new activities, and even started teaching himself basic painting, inspired by Evelyn's love for creativity. These small steps kept his mind sharp and his heart open to new possibilities. One of Henry's most profound realizations was that aging is a privilege. He often said, "Not everyone gets to grow old. Each day is a gift, and it's up to us to make it meaningful." This perspective shifted his focus from what he had lost to what he still had: a roof over his head, memories to cherish, and the ability to shape his future. For anyone navigating the challenges of growing older, Henry's wisdom offers a guiding light. Life after 60, 70, or even 80 is not the end. It's another chapter. It's a time to reflect on the past, embrace the present, and plan for a future filled with purpose and peace. As Henry puts it, "You can't control what life takes away, but you can decide how to move forward, and every step, no matter how small, is a victory." As Henry Carter reflected on his life's journey, one truth stood out above all: the most reliable source of strength comes from within. While relationships brought joy and connection, and companionship eased loneliness, self-reliance was what kept him grounded and resilient through life's uncertainties. Henry understood that while his children loved him deeply, they couldn't always be there when he needed them most. Their busy lives, careers, and families meant that he had to learn to navigate his own challenges. He often said, "Our children may care for us, but they have their own paths to follow. It's not about expecting less from them, it's about expecting more from ourselves." For Henry, self-reliance didn't mean isolation. It meant taking charge of his life with purpose and dignity. He began by ensuring he was financially stable, budgeting carefully to cover his needs while still setting aside a little for unexpected situations. Money can't buy happiness, he'd reflect, but it can prevent unnecessary worry, and in our later years, peace of mind is priceless. Beyond financial security, Henry focused on maintaining his physical and mental health. He created a daily routine that included light exercise, balanced meals, and time for hobbies that stimulated his mind. Walking in the mornings, reading in the afternoons, and playing chess with friends became pillars of his day. These activities not only kept him active, but also gave him a sense of purpose. Henry also emphasized the importance of emotional self-reliance. Life had taught him that while others could offer support, true strength came from his ability to navigate emotions like grief, loneliness, and fear on his own. Journaling became a tool he used to process his thoughts and reflect on his growth. Writing down his feelings allowed him to acknowledge his struggles while also celebrating his victories, no matter how small. But perhaps the most impactful shift Henry made was his decision to embrace a mindset of gratitude. Each day, he found something to be thankful for, whether it was the kindness of a friend, the beauty of a sunrise, or the simple comfort of a warm cup of tea. Gratitude, he realized, transformed even the most challenging days into opportunities for peace and contentment. Henry's journey towards self-reliance wasn't without its struggles. There were moments of doubt and days when he questioned whether he could manage on his own. But every time he faced those fears, he reminded himself of his resilience. "I've survived loss, loneliness, and change. If I can face those, I can face anything," he often told himself. For anyone feeling uncertain about their future, Henry's story is a reminder that self-reliance isn't about doing everything alone. It's about building a foundation of strength and independence that allows you to thrive no matter what life brings. As Henry wisely put it, "We can't control everything in life, but we can control how we respond. And when we rely on ourselves, we discover just how strong we truly are." As we reach the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful lessons Henry Carter's story offers. Aging may bring challenges, loneliness, loss, and the uncertainty of what lies ahead, but it's also a time of rediscovery, resilience, and growth. Henry's experiences remind us that life after 60, 70, or even 80 is not an ending. It's a new chapter filled with opportunities to embrace change, form meaningful connections, and nurture the strength within ourselves. Whether it's learning to let go, finding companionship, or building self-reliance, every step forward is a victory. If there's one thing Henry's journey teaches us, it's this: no matter how difficult life becomes, we have the power to shape our days and find purpose. Grief and loneliness may leave their mark, but they also open the door to growth, wisdom, and a deeper appreciation for the moments that truly matter. Now I want to leave you with a question. What steps can you take today to embrace this chapter of your life? Perhaps it's reaching out to a loved one, exploring a new hobby, or simply taking a walk to reflect on what you're grateful for. Remember, it's never too late to create a life filled with meaning, connection, and peace. If Henry's story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What lesson from his journey will you carry with you? Share it in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support this channel. Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories that inspire and empower. Thank you for joining me today. As always, remember to take care of yourself, cherish the relationships that matter, and approach each day with an open heart and a resilient spirit. Until next time, take the first step toward a brighter, more fulfilling life.